Welcome to the ArmaniTalks show, episode 34. I'm your host, ArmaniTalks. In this show, I am covering a range of topics on communication skills from public speaking, storytelling, social dynamics, emotional intelligence, and much more. To stay updated with the latest episodes, which drop in the beginning of every month, drop that like for me right on below, hit subscribe, hit that bell notification, and never miss another episode again. These episodes are also released on audio format, so you could hear it through SoundCloud, through Spotify, through Apple Podcast, and much more. With that being said, let us start off by talking about trick or treating. What happened to it? 2 years ago, I was living in an apartment complex, so I had no clue that kids were not trick or treating that much. But last year, I had just moved into a house, and I thought, okay, if kids knock on my door, I should have some candy ready. So I had some candy ready, and I was waiting for a little bit. I was waiting and waiting and waiting, and no one was knocking on my door saying, trick or treat. So I opened my door and I thought no kids were coming to my house because I did not design my house. But then I started walking around my neighborhood and I noticed that no one was trick or treating. The houses were not even designed. So I thought maybe my community does not do it. But this year, I see plenty of people making videos about how kids nowadays do not trick or treat. And I thought, wait, it was not just me last year. It's nowadays a trend. A lot of the kids in the younger generation do not trick or treat. And you know what I noticed? I noticed that adults get more excited for Halloween than little kids nowadays. It's these adults that want Halloween horror nights, Scream. They want Halloween parties. They are the ones who want to dress up. Sure, they're not trick or treating, but they are getting into the Halloween spirit more than the kids. Now, I have no clue why this is. I've heard of different theories. One of the theories that I heard is that a lot of the parents that used to have kids, nowadays those kids are adults, and nowadays those parents, since they're empty nesters, they don't really want to get into the Halloween spirit. They don't want to put up Halloween designs. That's one reason. Another reason is because the millennials, they're not buying homes. They're buying mainly apartments or renting in apartments, getting townhomes, etc. And not too many kids trick or treat in apartment complexes. And then there's this other phenomena called trunk or treat, which is apparently killing off trick or treating. I don't know the exact reason why. All I can tell is the younger generation does not get as excited for Halloween than the newer generation. And everyone is blaming the younger kids. Everyone is telling the younger kids, come on, man, how come you're not getting as excited as we used to? But I think this is more so a parent problem than a kid problem, or the parents have to be the one that is setting up that culture. And nowadays, it just feels as though the uh, people are less trustworthy of each other. Or even back in the days, we had the whole thing of stranger danger. Whenever you're going to different neighborhoods, you have to be really careful about how you trick or treat. You don't ever want to go in someone's houses, etc. But still, there was that level of trust that we had that we were getting good candy. Where nowadays, a lot more people are not trusting of each other. But there was this one talk that I heard within the past couple of days that resonated with me the most. This person said the reason that Halloween is not much of a thing, especially with the younger generation, is because of TV, more specifically, cable TV. And he was making the case that when we had cable TV, we all watched similar content. And cable TV had this way of getting us in the spirit of things. For example, during Thanksgiving, a lot of these cable TV shows would play Thanksgiving content. They had the entire Thanksgiving lineup, and it was a part of tradition to watch this lineup. Same thing with Halloween, same thing with Christmas. But the fact that this centralized form of TV does not exist nowadays shows that we're all doing our own thing. We don't follow a set culture. And this guy was making the case that centralized TV, aka cable TV, is what got all of us different entities swinging on a similar pendulum. And that explanation made the most sense to me. I think that is one of the reasons why. It's because us as adults, we want to follow trends. I can't quite say that is the only reason why we don't get into the Halloween spirit, because I have noticed people in their 30s nowadays get into the Halloween spirit more than ever. I just came back from Los Angeles recently. I did the horror nights in Universal Studios, and there were adults that were dressed up in these intricate costumes, and you could tell that they were super excited to go trick or treating, at least go to the haunted houses. I feel as though if adults are going to go all out for, you could say, for Halloween, then we shouldn't make it so weird if they want to go trick or treating. I think that is a perfectly fine concept. I think it is okay for whoever is down to go trick or treating to go trick or treating. But I recall once I had my growth spurt around age 15 to 16, and I became this tall guy. Everyone was like, bro, this is your last year trick or treating. You can't do it anymore because you look like an adult. And I thought, why must I get shamed for trick or treating if I actually want to? So I think to bring this culture back, what we need to do is get the people who actually want to go trick or treating, whether they're adults or not, and just let them go trick or treating rather than shaming them and forcing the little kids to do it. When a lot of the little kids, they don't want to do it. They don't even have the right fundamentals. I saw this one kid this year coming to grab candy from the front of my house, and he just didn't have the fundamentals. I'm like, where's your pumpkin basket, bro? You're just grabbing candy one by one. You're supposed to grab a handful and just put it in that pumpkin basket. Bro, I got to teach you the fundamentals. So who knows, man? In the future, things can change. I am not too surprised if a lot of adults are going to go trick or treating again. That is all with my thoughts regarding trick or treating. I have noticed it dying with the younger generation, but with the older generation, it is stronger than ever. It's a lot like the Facebook effect, where in 2012, Facebook was cool with the younger generation. I recall when I was 21 to 24, I loved using Facebook. Then around 2016, no one used Facebook. Everyone was using Instagram. But then is when the adults started to use Facebook. They started to tag one another. They were always checking their notifications. So whenever something becomes uncool for little kids or the younger generation, it becomes cool for the older generation and vice versa. I recently came back from LA, and LA was such a magical trip. It was roughly 2 to 3 days long, and within that trip, I did so much. I ended up seeing the Hollywood, not Halloween, Hollywood Walk of Fame. I ended up running into some stars here and there. I ended up going to a steakhouse, saw the Hollywood sign, went to a Lakers game, and much more. And it made me appreciate LA. This was the first time I ever went to Los Angeles. And before heading there, I got some mixed feedback. There were some people that were saying, dude, I'm telling you, LA is one of the coolest places you are ever going to visit. And then there were other people that were saying, bro, watch out, man. LA is kind of nasty. And I could see a little bit of both of what they were saying. I love LA. I gave the entire trip a 9 out of 10 because it was magical. The skylines are huge. There's a little to do for everyone. There are museums, there are games that you can go to, there are different places you can just walk and you can see street performances. We also went to Venice Beach, we went to Santa Monica Pier. It is packed the entire time. I want to start off with the criticism regarding LA. Then I want to talk about why LA is considered one of the biggest cities in the United States, if not the world. The criticism with LA is the driving. I hated driving there. Now, mind you, I also drove in Canada, and you can make the argument that Canada and LA both have really bad traffic. But the biggest difference is that Canada's roads are huge. They're so big and wide that you can't even notice that you're in that much traffic. You're still going to feel the effects, but considering how many cars there are, it should feel way worse. But with LA, these highways are super narrow, and sometimes when you're stuck in the highway, you're stuck for a long time. There was a period when I was driving and I really had to use the restroom. I'm thinking, okay, they're going to have an exit sign shortly or a rest stop somewhere. No, I'm just stuck on the highway for so long. And eventually I have to fight the traffic to get off and to go use the restroom somewhere. So I did not like the traffic at all. And another thing with the roads is you're going on one road and out of nowhere, that road turns into an exit. So now you have to try to get back onto the highway, but there are all these cars. And now it feels dangerous. That's one thing that I noticed with LA. You have to be really alert the entire time that you are driving. And it's not something that I liked too much about LA. I wish they will do something about their roads in the future. That was the only criticism I had. Other than that, I would say LA had such social people. One thing with LA is that these people know how to not only capture your attention, but they know how to keep it. There were multiple times I'm walking down the street, someone breaks ice with me, and I'm trying to keep on walking. I'm trying to get to my location. Your boy's trying to go to the wax museum. But these people just know how to change their tonality, ask you a follow up question, make a comment in such a beautiful, rhythmic way where you feel bad leaving. And then they weasel you into giving them 10 bucks. At first, I was kind of annoyed because I thought, man, how are these guys all so great at social skills enough to keep me hooked? Even though normally, if it's in Florida, for example, I'll just keep on walking. But these guys, they just know the ways of charisma. I was getting annoyed at first because I was giving 10 bucks, 10 bucks, 10 bucks. But later on, I was getting intrigued. I understood that the people here, they were coming from different parts of the world simply to make a name for themselves. And it just taught me that people that you consider entertaining, they should only be considered entertaining if they can make it in LA. Because even the street performers, they have such polish in each of their moves. They know how to use their tonality to capture an audience for a sustained period of time. You could tell they have been battle tested. Even the homeless people, they're entertaining as well. They're in Venice Beach, they're playing their guitars, and they're playing it beautifully. It's because if you don't do a good job, people will keep on walking. And you have a lot of competition in LA. But if you're capable of sticking out in LA, that's when I see star power in you. So this is one of those places where people from different areas come in order to make a name for themselves, and there is a reason as to why. I ended up going to the Lakers game. Something about the Lakers game was magical. I've been to basketball games before, but nothing like the Staples Center, which is now called the Crypto Arena. It was great to see Luca play. Unfortunately, LeBron was injured. He was not playing. But it was great to see Luca play. It was great to be in that atmosphere and soak up that history. There's a place outside where there are a bunch of statues. You get to walk around. The skyline is amazing. They also have Universal Studios. In many ways, LA has a lot in common with Florida, where Florida has a lot of the theme parks and LA has a lot of the theme parks. I think the theme parks in Florida are better, but I think LA as a whole is better. But would I live in LA? The answer is no. It's way too much, man. Like people bumping into each other all the time. It's really expensive over there. Some things are really expensive, some things are super cheap. You're thinking, that's it? Where whenever I go somewhere, my number one form of souvenirs to get is a shirt from the area. And there was this lady that was selling like 5 shirts for 20 bucks. That's a great deal. So LA is one of those places where certain things are going to be really expensive. You may end up paying $10 for water, and other things are going to be super cheap. Overall, it is a beautiful area. I can't decide if I like LA more or New York. Right now, I would give the nod to Los Angeles. But New York has its different kind of culture. Overall, LA trip was a 9 out of 10. And if you're thinking about going, I recommend you do. One thing that I want to say is that people there are really social, and there's a little cheat code I learned with traveling. I recommend that you travel around the city, right? A lot of people will give you the advice, oh, that's too touristy. Don't do that. But when you're traveling somewhere new for the first time, you want it to be touristy. So a lot of your itinerary is pretty much set up for you. You don't want to go in the middle of nowhere. That's not the smart thing to do. It's not the safe thing to do either. But here's the thing, You pretty much hang out in the city, but you stay roughly 30 minutes away where it's not city like. So we ended up staying in a hotel in, I believe it's called Santa Clarita. And that's a place I could actually see myself living. There are houses there. It actually looks a lot like Tampa over there. And everything's spaced out. You could actually drive. It's not traffic every road that you're going on. And I thought that was the perfect cheat code for a few reasons. One, when you're roughly 30 minutes away, you're not constantly going back to your hotel just chilling. You actually stay out for a sustained period of time and enjoy the trip. And another thing is it allows you to see two sides of the place that you are visiting. I got to see a little bit of the city and I got to see a little bit of the suburbs when I went to California. With that being said, I am a big fan of roughly 2 to 3 day trips because by the third day, I was actually ready to get the heck out of there because my legs were sore. I was getting tired. I was tired of driving, man. I was tired of looking all these stuff up. So by the third day, I was ready to leave. And that just made me realize that too much of a good thing is always a bad thing. I think if you can make that mental flip to do a bunch of these micro trips throughout the year, then not only will you save more money, but you will have a better time as well. Where many people they associate trips with roughly a week minimum, where I think I could have spent a week in LA. I'm pretty sure I could have split LA and San Diego into a week long trip. But after a while, you actually start to miss home. When I came back home, only after 2 to 3 days, I was excited. So I make that a recommendation to you as well. And one of the final things I want you to think about, especially when you're traveling, is what type of traveler are you? What exactly do you want from a vacation? Now, you may think, well, Armani, doesn't everyone want the same thing? So I ask you, what is it? If you ask me, the answer is feeling refreshed. And you may think, well, yeah, the answer for me is feeling refreshed too. But that's not the answer for everyone. For certain people, it's not necessarily feeling refreshed, it's to see as many things as they possibly can. So they want to see every single nook and cranny of LA. But if you're going to do something like that, then you may not feel refreshed at the end of the trip. It's because you're driving for a long time. You're waiting for a long time. You're looking up things for a long time. And you never get that chance to relax. Where my philosophy is, I do want to see things, right? I'm definitely going to see the major attractions, but I want the priority to be feeling refreshed. It's sort of like when I'm watching a movie. Sure, I want to learn a thing or two. I want my mind to be challenged. But the main thing that I'm looking for is entertainment. Is it making me feel entertained? Okay, then we're good to go. Same thing with trips. Is it making me feel refreshed? Once I am back, am I feeling recharged? Or when I'm coming back, do I feel tired? Because there are people who come back from a vacation and they need another vacation from their vacation. They need to relax more, but now they have to go log into work the next day. That's not a refresh trip. And that's something you should actually talk to your partner about. There was this one time I was in Hawaii, and I recalled there was this couple that was arguing because the wife, she just wanted to keep going and seeing as many things in Hawaii as possible. She wanted to keep doing these different activities. But the husband, he wanted to relax more. He wanted to lay back and absorb the scenery more. And they were just arguing about it. And a big part of being in a relationship is that you guys are going to travel a lot together. I was actually in a Toastmasters competition yesterday, and afterwards, myself and a couple of my buddies, we ended up getting lunch, and I was the only married one from that entire crew. You could tell those guys were thinking about getting married in the upcoming year. So they were like, Armand, what is one of the main things you learned from marriage? And one of the main things that I learned from marriage is that you are going to be having to travel a lot and not have to, you actually get to. Uh, you are going to go to family trips, you are going to go to weddings, you are going to obviously go outside to different areas outside of your country, but you're also going to go to unique parts of your state. There are new parts of the state that I'm always discovering ever since I've been married. So if you are someone that is not congruent with your partner about how you guys like to travel, that is a conversation worth having. Otherwise, one person comes out of a trip feeling excited and the other person comes out of a trip feeling angry. So you want to ask, hey, what do you look for in a trip? Are you someone that likes to interact with your surroundings more? Or are you someone that likes to absorb more? And eventually, you guys can even get that 50-50 split, where eventually, I believe that husband and wife, they were able to talk themselves into an agreement, which is okay, how about the first half of the day, we're doing these activities, but the second half of the day, we're simply absorbing the scenery. We're watching more shows. I think more of these theme parks need shows. That was another thing with Universal Studios that I noticed. They had a lot of these rides. I'm like, bro, where are the shows at, man? I don't want to keep walking. I just want to sit back, relax, and watch some of these shows. It's important to be able to have these types of conversations. And the more that you do have these conversations, the better off that you will be. So I am going to bring up the Toastmasters competition shortly. But before I do that, I want to bring up another thing that couples should focus on. So far I talked about you guys should talk about how you guys like to take vacation somewhere. Another thing you guys should talk about are household chores. There are a couple of friends that I have that are married, and one of the main points of contentions are the household chores. Some people they don't know when to do what, and I wrote a simple blog post on how to divide household chores fairly, and I want to break it down. First thing you want to do is you want to assess the financial baseline. Now, what do I mean by this? Certain couples are 100-0, where the guy covers 100% of the bills, the girl does not cover anything. In a relationship like this, since the guy covers 100% of the bills, I think the girl should do 100% of the housework. I believe this is fair. Now, there are other situations where the guy and the girl, they go 50-50. In these situations, I believe the guy should do 50% of the housework and the girl should do 50% of the housework. Other couples are 70-30, and you know what that means. The if the guy covers 70% of the bills, the girl should do 70% of the housework. You're starting to get the pattern. So, the very first thing you guys should do is to assess the financial baseline because this will determine what is fair versus what is not fair. A lot of the times, people are delving into the unfair territory, but they have no clue why. For example, a guy is covering 100% of the bills and he's splitting 50-50 housework at home. That's not fair. Now, if the guy wants to do it, that makes sense. But if the guy's being forced to do it, he may say, well, I'm covering 100% of the bills. How about you help me with the bills and I could help you with the housework? So it all starts from finance and everything trickles from there. Now, from that aspect, once you decide the financial baseline, the next thing you want to break down is the day that you guys are going to clean. You guys are going to do the chores. And it doesn't have to be a day, it could be days. Where when it was myself and two of my roommates, my brother and this other roommate that we had this one board that we would work from. And each week we would have different tasks, such as change the litter, such as empty the trash, such as do the dishes, etc. And that's something that you want to do. From the finances, you want to choose a day or days the house will be cleaned. And this takes away all of the emotions. My philosophy is every Sunday, we need a reset. The house needs to be clean every Sunday. No ifs, ands, or buts. Now, from there, you want to see what are you guys already great at. Some people, they don't mind taking out the trash while other people hate it. Some people, they don't mind vacuuming while other people hate it. Just have that conversation very loosely. And from there, you want to try to divide up tasks to the best of your abilities and stick with it for at least a month. So imagine that you stay in a two-story house. One guy gets the bottom floor, the other person gets the top floor. Now, if you guys keep switching it every week, what happens is you never understand the rhythm. You never build a workflow for how you want to clean. But once you guys stay in that location for a month, or you do that activity for a month, now you start to build your own formulas. Now you understand, I need to do this task before this task. I need to wipe the counters before I vacuum, because if I vacuum and then I wipe the counters, a lot of the crumbs get back on the floor and now I have to vacuum again. These are little nuances that you pick up as long as you give yourself a month to do it. And from there, you just keep rinse and repeating. You keep on doing it every single Sunday or whichever day that you set out for. Overall, chores are a big thing. And in the future, I do want all of this automated. I actually had this thought experiment recently. I said, Armani, if you are worth $100 million, dollars, what life would you rather choose? Would you rather have that life where you could buy anything? You could buy that big mansion. You could buy that fancy car. You could buy any trip that you want. Or would you choose a life where you could eliminate anything that bothers you? Such as you eliminate having to ever cook again. You eliminate having to ever clean again. You eliminate having to ever drive again. And I said the second life because I'm just one of those guys. I don't really care about the material things that much, but I care a lot about the experiences. And if I could remove a lot of these chores, then it will make life a lot better. But I understand the stage of life that I am in right now. I'm not one of these guys that could afford a maid every month, but I could afford a maid every 3 to 4 months where they do a deep cleaning. And it's just teaching me the process. It's teaching me to dream bigger, where eventually, Armani, you don't have to do any of these chores. Or you, right now, maybe you have dreams in the future of never having to do chores again. You guys have a maid and everything is taken care of. But right now, you're at the stage of your life where you do have to do chores, and it is imperative that you do things fairly. So, first, assess the type of finances you guys are operating with. From there, choose a day that you guys will clean. Three, you want to make sure that you guys see what you guys are competent in, what you guys hate doing versus like doing, and you stick with it at least for a month. Build your workflows and just keep on doing the chores. A messy home is not a good home. A clean home is a happy home. And with that being said, I want to talk about this Toastmasters competition that I came from yesterday. Yesterday, I went to this Toastmasters competition, and it was so much fun to watch. I saw a bunch of the table topics being played out in front of me. I saw the humorous speech competition. And then I thought, wow, Toastmasters has come a long way. Because roughly around 2016 to 2017, I recall participating in the humorous speech competition. And that was the first year that they were having the humorous speech competition. Before then, they didn't have it. Before then, a lot of Toastmasters was worked from the same book. But around 2016 to 2017, I believe they were playing around more. They were being more flexible. And that's when someone asked, Armani, do you want to do the humorous speech competition? I said, man, I don't know if I should. Then I said, screw it, sign me up. And that was one of the funnest competitions that I ever participated in. It's actually on my YouTube channel. If you type in ArmaniTalks toothpaste, then you will see that speech. It was basically a story where I'm talking about trying to find toothpaste on a cruise. I got a lot of laughs. Overall, it was a fun experience, but I got disqualified because I went over by 1 second. Because when they were announcing the winners, everyone was looking at me like, how did you not place? And then the judge said, oh yeah, Armani, you got disqualified. I was like, why? Like, well, you went over. By how much? 1 second. 1 second? Are you serious? She said, yes. But it taught me a big lesson. It doesn't matter what you do with your speech, how great it is. If you don't follow the rules, unfortunately, you will get disqualified. And this is going to mean a lot because someone from yesterday's competition got disqualified. So I'm watching the table topics, and anytime I'm hearing these table topics, mentally I'm thinking, man, I should be participating right now. Overall, the table topics were pretty good. The question was, if you could hang with any historical figure, who would it be? And different people were participating, different people were giving good responses, and overall, that part went smoothly. That's when my legs started to get sore. There were no seats for myself because the place was a little small and a lot of people had to stand. Now we had to deal with the speeches, and one of my good friends was giving the speech. He was actually the first up. And once he went on stage and he gave his humorous talk, I was amazed. I thought he did such a great job. Once he got off, mentally I was thinking, oh, he won. No one's going to top that. He had no wasted movements. He was funny. He was looking at the audience. Everyone was engaged. He was doing funny impressions. No one is going to beat that. Then one by one, more and more people started to go up, and they weren't doing good as my friend. But eventually, there was this fifth person that went up, and as soon as she went up, I told my buddy that I was with, I have a feeling that she may win. Not because of performance, because her speech was okay to me, and her voice was so soft, you couldn't hear it. I could actually see in the back a lot of people saying, I can't hear, I can't hear. But I knew that she had a high likelihood of winning because of the politics of Toastmasters. And this is one of the things that pisses me off about Toastmasters so much. They kind of go for this formulaic approach where if you hit certain formulas, then the judges like that a lot. And if you know the judges, their inherent biases get flamed up. Or this girl, as she was talking about going to a Taylor Swift concert, I saw her roll with a bunch of the other judges prior to the meeting. And I just told my buddy, I think politics is going to make her win. And you could actually hear me saying that in one of the videos that he was recording throughout the talk. So I called it. More speeches went on by, and the final guy was also really great. There were a couple of moments where he hesitated, but overall, his speech was perfect. Now came the time for the votes, and the votes were taking a long time because when you go into Toastmasters, you will see a lot of old people that know nothing about technology, or they get these different papers rather than using AI to help them calculate the final output. They are hand calculating all of this. So we are waiting for a long time. And this is when the host calls up the different participants and starts asking them questions. It was a fun little part of the competition. It got us engaged with who these speakers were. We learned more about them. And finally, the voting came in. There was a first place and a second place for table topics and for the planned speeches. Back in my days, you could only get first place to go on to the next section. But in this competition, you could nowadays get first and second place and go on to the next section. And my prediction hold accurate. The Taylor Swift girl ended up winning. And that's when I was just bothered. I just thought, if you were being objective, her speech was not half as good as two other speeches, my buddies and the last guy who presented. Yet she is getting this opportunity. Even for table topics, the girl who ended up winning, you could tell she was even shocked because for that talk about which famous historical figure would you meet, her first half of the speech, she was just distracting the audience, right? She's just like, I appreciate you guys for inviting me. I appreciate you for giving me this topic. I appreciate for being given this stage. And she says verbatim, as you can tell, I'm trying to take up some time until I think of my response. So the first half, she just wasting time. And then the second half, she says Mother Teresa, but for a very little period, and then time is done. Like, how does a person like that get first place? Who is judging? And that is my biggest criticism with Toastmasters nowadays. The judges suck. Even a couple of years ago, I did one of these competitions. There was this high likelihood that I was going to make it to the next level. And then the person right after me, they get on stage, they start crying about their daughter dying at an early age, which, by the way, is a very sad thing. But the mere fact that this guy is crying gets him to win. Multiple times I have noticed this. If you cry on a Toastmaster speech, you're pretty much guaranteed the first place, which is not right. There needs to be a better way to judge in an objective sort of way. What is the content of the speech like? What is your pace like? Did you meet the time mark? I mean, make it objective as much as you can. And I'm not one of these guys that knows the answer yet. I think what Toastmasters is doing is the best that they're capable of doing at the moment. But I think it's not a good look when people are practicing so hard and then politics gets in the way. This is not something that should be occurring, but unfortunately, it is. And this is a club that I have never been to before. This is in a completely different location than where I'm from. And the fact that I can say that the same thing that happened in this club happened in previous clubs is not a good sign. I called it. I said, I'm telling you, man, this guy had the best speech, but unfortunately, this girl may win due to politics. And that's exactly what ends up happening. I don't really know how the votes are going to work because there's that element of human connection that we have with the speakers. If we are, let's say, talking to 10 people in a speed dating event, and one of those people starts crying, and then afterwards someone asks you, who is the most memorable? You're probably going to just think of the person that was crying, not because of impact, it's just because you normally don't see people crying in front of you. So it's a human element sort of thing. So I have no clue how judging is going to be fixed, but I think it does need to be fixed because people work hard for these competitions. It consumes them for months in advance. And if you're just over here not rewarding them, that's not a good look. And speaking of, one of the best speakers for the humorous speech competition, he got disqualified. And he got disqualified for a rule that I never knew about. Apparently, when you're giving your speech, you can't shout out other people's speeches. So, for this guy who got disqualified, in his title, there was this word, let's just call it law. Let's call it Vincent's Law. And there was another speaker whose speech also had Vincent's Law in it. So, this guy thought it would be funny to say, oh, I didn't know we have two speeches with Vincent's Law. Something simple as that got him disqualified. I thought, why? The judge said, it's because a speaker cannot reference another speaker's speech. I never knew about that. And apparently, certain clubs were saying this a lot. Certain clubs were saying, hey, make sure you do not talk about another speaker's speech multiple times. And what if your club didn't even know about that rule? Because I remember when I was preparing for my speech, no one ever told me about that rule. So, how am I supposed to know? It's just an unfortunate thing. I believe they also need to make that more clear. Any rule that can get you disqualified, only thing that people know about is the thing with the time. But any rule out there that can get you disqualified, that should be written in a document, and the speaker has to memorize that document. The speaker needs to at least be aware because when this amazing speaker got disqualified, he was shocked. He was like, wait, really? I wasn't thinking I was going to get disqualified. Oh, well. But you could just tell he was upset. The rest of the event, he just didn't want to be there. But despite me saying that the judges they could do better, overall I think the Toastmasters competition is one of the best things to participate in. I've participated in two before and it was such a blast. I mean, there are moments that you are going to be challenged that you never thought you were going to reach this potential. Because here's the thing, after my buddy gave the speech, there were different people coming to him, giving him feedback. Hey, bro, if I were you, I would do this. If I were you, I would do this. If I were you, I would do this. Old school you may have thought, man, if anyone gave me feedback, I may have just cried on the spot. But new school you welcome it. My buddy, he was getting so excited that different people kept coming to him, telling him, hey, you could have improved this. You could have improved that. Because now, since he is advancing to the next level, he is capable of getting those feedback and implementing it. So that's something that you are going to learn about yourself. Right now, whenever someone gives you feedback, you may get annoyed. But in the future, when someone gives you feedback, you may love it. And there are moments when you are building this connection with your speech. This competition that was held happened on November 1st. The next level is going to happen in May. These speakers who are advancing to the May competition, they're saying the same speech over and over again. They need to polish it up. They need to make it beautiful. Eventually, they're going to know that speech so well that they just show up on stage and the speech is delivered through them, but they're not thinking about it. That's the level that you want to get to. And that's the level that you can get to once you start participating in these competitions more. The question is, when should you participate in a Toastmasters competition? I believe you should participate once you get roughly two to three planned speeches out of the way. You get roughly two evaluations out of the way, and you do some of these other positions, such as the grammarian, such as the timer, such as the counter, such as the quizmaster. Now you have built a body of work, and now you are ready. So, roughly two to three planned speeches, two to three evaluations, and two to three of those extra roles. And now I believe you are ready. You want to participate, my friend, because there are people that join Toastmasters, they don't do anything. I recall there was this one guy I used to respect. He joined Toastmasters, he never shows up to a meeting, and when he does, he's always sitting in the back, just chilling. I'm like, dude, how come you never participate, bro? And he says, I'm just waiting for my time. When are you going to participate? And he's always just waiting and waiting away. And there are people like that that enter these meetings that are always waiting and waiting. And when you ask them, is Toastmasters working for you? They're filled with opinions. They're like, trust me, bro, it doesn't work. What do you mean it doesn't work? You don't even participate. And then there are other people that join the club and they immediately start participating. And that's what my buddy was like, the one that I went to visit yesterday at the meeting. He joined the club and he immediately starts participating. And that's something that I respect. So Toastmasters is one of those clubs where you are going to get out as much as you put in. If you don't put in much, don't expect to get that much. And don't even have opinions. The people that put in the least amount of work often have the most opinions, and it pisses me off. You should only have opinions once you've done a lot of speeches, a lot of evaluations, you've participated. And if nothing is happening for you then nothing is happening for you. I'm not saying that Toastmasters is the perfect public speaking club. There are ways that it could improve, but overall, it is one of the best things at the moment. And this is something that I was talking to one of my buddies with yesterday. This is one thing I learned with friendships as you grow up. Most of these friendships, they don't break apart due to malice. They break apart due to distance. Yesterday, I had to drive 1 hour to the Toastmasters competition. Then I had to drive another hour to meet a second group of friends. And I just thought, man, I'm just driving left and right. And the second group of friends that I met, this is the guy that got me into Toastmasters. And I was just telling him, dude, I just came back from the Toastmasters competition. What do you think? Do you ever want to get back into Toastmasters with me? And he told me something important. He said, Armani, I want to be a paid speaker right now. And right now, Toastmasters and paid speaking, they ask for different things. And I told him to elaborate because he does get paid to speak. And he said that Toastmasters, it emphasizes performance more. It emphasizes entertainment. While when you are a planned speaker, you need to come with a curriculum. You need to be able to teach a group of students a topic. And for that, you need bullet points, you need a checklist. And I thought, depending on the stage of your life that you are in, will require different things from you. Or my buddy right now, he doesn't necessarily need Toastmasters because he has overcome a lot of speech anxiety. But I still think you should participate in Toastmasters if you have the time. Unfortunately for me, I don't have the time right now because a lot of these meetings are scheduled at times when I'm just not free. But if I had the time, then I would be participating because I think in terms of human communication, entertainment should be that nucleus. Especially the bigger audience that you are speaking to, entertainment should be that nucleus. So it doesn't necessarily matter if you are a planned speaker. Ultimately, you are speaking to humans, so you need to understand the ability to play with your tonality, to tell a joke out of the blue moon, to use your palms. These are skill sets that Toastmasters teaches you. And I think Toastmasters often gets the rep as not focusing on the content at all, but that is not true. I'm telling you, Toastmasters has content. Actually, that is one of the metrics that you get evaluated for. Now, is it as in depth content as creating a curriculum for a group of school students? No. But is there content? Absolutely. So I think Toastmasters overall, the pros outweigh the cons, but I do want to talk about the cons as well. I think the cons is that the judges are not the best. Sometimes they do get a little too theatrical, and sometimes they don't focus enough on the content when they should. Overall, though, Toastmasters is that public speaking club that will help you level up your skill set, and I highly recommend it. There are plenty of people that are great at their ideas, but they are just afraid to communicate those ideas. There are different ways to communicate your ideas in different places, where sometimes you need that assertive approach, other times you need that soft approach. I recall there was this lady. I always get my laundry done by this one store. And one day this lady got kind of upset with me. She said, "Hey, Armani, we love having you as a customer, but we need you to bring our hangers back." I was like, okay. They never told me that till this particular day. So I didn't know why she was so upset at me. She was the one being assertive, and I was saying, okay, whatever. Now, the next time I went, I brought the hangers back, but this time I said, "Hey, can we avoid using hangers at all? Can you just fold my clothes?" And she said, "Yes." And if I'm coming back at her aggressively as well, psychologically, I don't know if she's going to do a good job on my laundry. So I had to take that softer approach. I had to do the chirping method. And that's something that you may have to do in work as well. Where at work, you may not always have that ability to be assertive. Sometimes you just need to keep chirping, chirping, chirping away. There have been multiple calls where I would join, I would share an idea, and someone else at the same time says another idea, and the entire group is focusing on their idea. This is when I could just be like, okay, let me just shut up and let me just focus on their idea as well. But that's not what happens. Instead, I focus on their idea for a little bit, then I come back to chirping away. I start to bring up my idea again. And the more that you are constantly just staying on top of people's consciousness, the more that your ideas eventually get heard. One thing you will notice about a lot of these executive directors, managing directors, is that they're not all great communicators. A lot of them are soft, a lot of them mumble a lot, but they get their ideas heard. How do you get them heard? You could either have the brute force method where you have a strong voice and you overpower other people's voices, or you just keep on chirping. No, no, what do you think about this? No, no, well, I mean, no, no, but here's the thing. No, no, but hey, hold on, hold on. I think we should do it like this. I think we should do it like that. That's what you keep doing. And that's how a lot of women can survive too. Because men naturally have way stronger voices than women. Their voices are very deep, they're easy to hear, they're loud. While a lot of women have soft voices. And in the workspace, a lot of women's voices get drowned out by the men's. And for the women to stick out, just keep on speaking, keep on chirping, especially if you have an idea that you think will benefit others. I believe in the future we're going to have shorter and shorter meetings, and that is one of the most important things to do. Because whenever you have a meeting without any form of guidelines, you will notice these meetings taking up so much time. That is one of the biggest differences I've noticed between VPs and associates, where whenever a bunch of associates are running a meeting, they're just talking and talking and talking. Any new idea is adding another 15 to 20 minutes. While a VP, they often want an agenda. VPs to EDs to managing directors, they want an agenda. And even then, the agendas don't often work. So here's what I would recommend. If you are setting up a meeting, whatever you want to set it up for, divide it by two. So if you want to make it 30 minutes, make it 15 minutes. If you want to make it an hour, make it 30 minutes. And from there, have that agenda. Don't just have an agenda with this very vague timeline. Say the timeline multiple times. Let them know, hey, this is a 15-minute meeting and this is what we're going to be talking about. Don't say this is what we're going to be talking about in 15 minutes. Emphasize the time limit first. This is only a 15-minute meeting. So guys, This is what we are going to be talking about. You say that a couple of times, and then everyone is more mindful of their words. Everyone is more in tune with the purpose of the meeting. The shorter the meeting, the more insights that you often get from it. Certain meetings, you could have it long. You guys are just, as you say, making the sausage. It's not, it's a purposeless meeting rather than a purposeful meeting. That's a different type of meeting. Those could be long. But when you have an agenda, make it small. When you make it small, other people are more tuned in because people are busier nowadays. If they're always leaving their Zoom cameras off, chances are they're not even paying attention. So why are you wasting your time for it in the first place? You want your meetings to be short, micro meetings. Have a clear agenda. I recall when I was in my fraternity, we used to have this position called the parliamentarian. This is the person who would instill discipline into these meetings. Because a traditional chapter would last an hour, and there are a bunch of different fraternity guys. And you know how guys get. They get really rowdy. So if one guy is making a joke, now everyone wants to make a joke, and everyone is not focusing on the president or the speaker, and you're just wasting a lot of time. It was up to the parliamentarian to get this hammer pounded on the table and say, order, order. And you had to be an assertive parliamentarian. I recall there was this one parliamentarian who played zero games. He would say, order, order. And then he would start handing out fines. He would say, $50 fine for you, 50 for you, 50 for you. And now everyone gets quiet. They don't want to pay fines. That is how you instill order. But you want to be realistic too, because this guy eventually started to overdo it. He'll say, a $5,000 fine for you, $1,000,000 fine for you. Like, dude, you have to be realistic too. You need to be that guy that inspires fear. And I think if more meetings had that position, the parliamentarian that would instill order, anytime you are swaying off track, you come back into track, then things will be a lot better. This is actually a position that is needed, and you don't need to hire externally for a full time parliamentarian. You want to see who is the most assertive from a team, and you just want them to be the parliamentarian. And that may even be you, where sometimes I will play the parliamentarian, where I don't want to. I don't like to yell at people. I don't like to tell them, all right, you've been talking for a long time. Let's get back on track. But sometimes it's for the greater good. A parliamentarian needs a couple of qualities. They need to understand the main purpose of the meeting. They need to be confrontational when needed. And they need to have clear communication skills. Hey, I see you two talking over there. You sit over there. You sit over there. Please, no more talking. Let's get through this meeting. You say it in an assertive way. And then once you see the end of the meeting, now you are good to go. That is the way to do a proper parliamentarian role. And you don't need a parliamentarian for a 15-minute meeting. But once you are doing one of these hour-long, let's say a chapter meeting for fraternities or an hour-long stakeholder meeting, that's when you want to start adding in this position. This is a crisp way to run a smooth meeting. Because nowadays, a lot of these meetings are such waste of times. There is always that one idiot that is throwing the entire meeting off with these nonsensical comments that is not advancing anything forward. And they're needed for certain stuff, but they're such wastes. And I just want a perfect world where they include what they are supposed to include, and then I'm like, all right, see ya. But the fact that they include what they're supposed to include and now they're staying in the meeting, they're just extending so much time for no reason. And people get angry. People get furious when you waste their time, especially at work. That's why some people are so selective with who they respond back to, because them responding back to a hello can mean they are dedicating another hour and a half to this stranger. So they are super selective. When I was first starting my career, I would always respond back to everyone because I wanted to learn. But after a certain period, when things are busy and people are hitting me up left and right, I needed to build the skill set of not responding back and being okay with it. Where just my personality, the way that it is at work, if I am underperforming and I know about it, it haunts me. It really does. I can't sleep that well. I recall there was this one time I was at work and I just made a big mistake and I got called out for it. And it haunted me, man. It haunted me for the entire year because I would have these monthly meetings. And I recall the meeting that I messed up on. Someone pinged me later on, called me out. I knew I had the same meeting the next month and the month after that and the month after that. And it would haunt me. A lot of these jobs nowadays are communication skills based. And I believe it's a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is that these jobs are not going to get automated because ultimately a lot of it could get automated, but ultimately a lot of clients want a human that they can speak to, that they can take their frustrations out on, someone that they can grill. And if you can always just say, oh, well, just talk to the AI, they're ultimately going to get mad. So there is a good side to this where a lot of these client facing roles are not going to get automated, but the bad side is that it can haunt you more. And you need to understand when to leave work at work. I have this one buddy who has such a beautiful philosophy with work. He says, when I'm working, dude, I go 110%. But I only go 110% from 9 to 5. By the time it's 5:01, don't hit me up. Don't set expectations like that for me where you're going to start pinging me after work to determine my performance because that is not how I play. When I am working, you're going to get 110% out of me. But once I log off, I log off. And that's something that I needed time to figure out. Where once I logged off, I was still thinking about work. Where I noticed people that are really successful with their careers, once they log off, they know when to fall back. Now, every now and then there are exceptions where they're still thinking about their work. But for these 40-hour week jobs, when you log off, you need to be able to log off, especially when you're getting into those management positions. With your business, it's a different thing because with your business, you always have to be on in the beginning stages. But if you could eventually set yourself up in a way where you're following the entrepreneur's 9 to 5, which is a video that I have on the Armani Talks YouTube channel, where I say that once your business is super established, you can work a 9 to 5 and get most of the important parts done throughout the day. That's when you log in at night, you log in at 9 and you log off at 5, and boom, you are good to go. So these are just some tips that I have, especially with entrepreneurship and working. Can you work a job and can you do entrepreneurship? I believe the answer is yes. Just understand that you are going to be busy. A lot of time is going to be dedicated to your craft, and you need to have this continuous learning mode. If you can keep on learning, then that is one of the best skill sets for you. If you want to learn more, I actually have a book called The Modern Polymath. It's right here somewhere. It's this nice colorful one. Modern Polymath. You could type it in on Google. You could type it in on ArmaniTalks.com, click shop. And The Modern Polymath teaches you how to learn. It is a book that gives you scientific principles on how you can learn better. But it's not just science alone. It also has that element of communication skills where a couple of previews that I can give you is one, you want to just keep on exposing your senses to the content. So if you're trying to learn more about CNC machines, you just keep hearing talks about it, exposing your ear to the audio, right? You want to see what CNCs look like. You just want to keep exposing yourself to the content. Then you want to start learning language. You want to keep seeing the repeat words in each of these videos. Then you want to learn more about it. Hopefully, you get to actually use a CNC machine. Then you want to explain it, but you want to explain it with analogies. Whenever you're teaching people content, not just teaching them in a boring way, but teaching them with stories and analogies, now the wet cement is turning into dry cement. Now you truly know the topic. And now, the more that you know, the more that you're capable of asking intelligent questions. And once you have intelligent questions, now you can expose your senses to more data. And once you expose your senses to more data, you just keep beginning that process more and keep on doing, uh, trying it out more, explaining more, asking more intelligent questions, exposing your senses more. And that is what I call a, you could say, a flywheel. The output is being fed back into the input. And from there, you're capable of learning and capable of growing much more. So, to check out the modern day polymath, you can check it out on Amazon. You can check it out on Audible. You can go on ArmaniTalks.com, click shop, and grab your copy today. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll catch you next time.